From independence to civil conflict, America's first century was defined by war. There were three major conflicts that shaped the nation. The first was the Revolutionary War, which gave birth to a new republic founded on liberty. Then the Mexican-American War stretched that republic from coast to coast. And finally, the Civil War determined whether that republic would survive, and whether the promise of freedom extended to all people. Thanks to advanced AI software, we can now restore these historical scenes with unprecedented clarity. By analysing paintings, lithographs, and photographs created by eyewitnesses to these conflicts, we're able to show how these pivotal moments unfolded. This is the story of America's most important wars. And that all started with the American Revolution, a war that literally changed the world. What began as a colonial dispute over taxes erupted into an 8-year struggle that gave birth to a new nation. Thanks to advanced AI software, we can now restore these historical scenes with unprecedented clarity. By analysing actual 18th century paintings and engravings created by eyewitnesses, we're able to show how these pivotal moments likely unfolded, bringing to life the battles and people who fought for American independence. This is Boston Harbor on the cold night of December 16th, 1773. You're witnessing one of the most audacious acts of defiance in colonial history. About 60 colonists, some disguised as Mohawk Indians, have boarded 3 merchant ships. They're splitting open 342 chests of East India Company tea and heaving them into the water, destroying nearly 10,000 pounds worth of cargo. This is the Boston Tea Party, organised by Samuel Adams and the Sons of Liberty. Britain's reaction was swift. Parliament closed Boston's port and placed Massachusetts under martial law. 16 months later, just before dawn on April 19, 1775, on Lexington Green, you're seeing the first shots of the Revolutionary War, sparked by escalating tensions over British taxation and control, with the Boston Tea Party being a crucial link. 77 militiamen face 700 British regulars. A shot rings out. The British unleash a volley. 8 Americans fall dead. The Redcoats march to Concord, where at the North Bridge, militia engage them in fierce combat. As the British retreat, colonists harry them from behind trees and stone walls. By day's end, the British have suffered 73 killed and nearly 200 wounded. The revolution has begun. This is Breed's Hill in Charlestown on June 17, 1775. 2,400 British regulars under General William Howe are advancing up the slope, scarlet lines gleaming, bayonets fixed. Inside the earthen fort, New England farmers wait, desperately low on ammunition. The British close to 50 yards. The American line erupts with devastating fire. The assault breaks. Howe sends them forward again. Again, withering fire repulses them. On the third assault, the Americans' ammunition runs out. The British surge over the earthworks with bayonets. Dr. Joseph Warren is shot and killed. The defenders retreat. The British won the ground but suffered over 1,000 casualties. American losses, 450. Bunker Hill proves colonial militia can inflict devastating casualties on British regulars. This is Independence Hall in Philadelphia on July 4, 1776. The Second Continental Congress is formally adopting Thomas Jefferson's Declaration of Independence. The Declaration establishes that all men are created equal, that they possess certain unalienable rights, that legitimate government derives from the consent of the governed. 56 men will sign the parchment. John Hancock's bold signature leads the way. When copies reach the army, patriots topple King George III's statue in New York and melt its 4,000 pounds of lead into bullets. On this summer day, the United States of America is born in solemn declaration. This is the icy Delaware River on Christmas night 1776. Washington's army has been driven from New York. Enlistments expire in days. You're seeing 2,400 soldiers boarding Durham boats as sleet and snow whip across the water. Ice floes crash against the hulls. By 3 in the morning, the force has crossed. At 8 o'clock on December 26th, through driving snow, they fall upon the Hessian garrison at Trenton. In less than 2 hours, nearly 900 surrender. American casualties, perhaps 2 or 3 killed. This strike reverses the Patriots' fortunes and convinces soldiers to re-enlist, saving the revolution at its moment of extinction. This is Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, winter 1777 to 1778. Washington's 11,000 troops have entered winter quarters 20 miles from British-occupied Philadelphia. You're seeing soldiers building crude log huts. Over 4,000 troops have no proper coats. Many have no shoes, wrapping bloody feet in rags. Poor sanitation spreads typhus, dysentery, and pneumonia. Roughly 2,500 men will die from disease and starvation. Yet Valley Forge becomes a crucible of transformation. In February 1778, Baron von Steuben arrives and trains troops in European military discipline. In May, news arrives that France has signed a formal alliance. On June 19, 1778, a transformed army marches out, toughened, disciplined, ready to fight. This is Saratoga, New York, early October 1777. British General Burgoyne has led 8,000 troops south from Canada. His army is exhausted and short on supplies. Waiting, 12,000 American troops under General Gates. On October 7th, Burgoyne launches a desperate assault. You're seeing Daniel Morgan's riflemen picking off British officers from the tree line. Benedict Arnold rides into battle rallying troops. His horse is shot and a musket ball shatters his leg, but the American line holds. Burgoyne falls back, completely surrounded. On October 17, 1777, he surrenders his entire force of 5,800 men. When news reaches Europe, it convinces France the Americans can win. In February 1778, France signs a formal alliance, transforming the revolution from colonial rebellion into global conflict. This is Yorktown, Virginia, fall 1781. British General Cornwallis has entrenched 8,000 troops here, expecting reinforcements. Instead, 17,000 French and American troops have converged by land. While French Admiral de Grasse's fleet controls the bay, Cornwallis is completely surrounded. You're seeing the siege's final days. Allied artillery pounds British fortifications. On October 14th, Colonel Alexander Hamilton leads 400 troops in a bayonet charge against Redoubt No. 10, while French troops storm Redoubt No. 9. The attacks succeed in minutes. On October 17th, Cornwallis asks for terms. 2 days later, the British formally surrender. You're watching 7,000 British and Hessian troops laying down their arms. When news reaches London, it breaks Britain's will to continue. Peace talks begin, resulting in the Treaty of Paris in 1783, where Britain formally recognizes American independence. After Yorktown, Washington faced his greatest test. On December 23, 1783, he appeared before Congress and resigned his commission, returning to private life. His voluntary relinquishment of power set the young republic on a course toward democracy. The images created by those who witnessed these events, from Amos Doolittle's engravings of Lexington to John Trumbull's paintings, ensure we can still see and remember the extraordinary journey that gave birth to a nation. History has left us countless engravings and paintings from pivotal moments throughout time. Tell us in the comments, which historical event would you like to see revived next? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. The Mexican-American War was a conflict that reshaped North America. From 1846 to 1848, the United States waged war against Mexico in a territorial dispute that would add over 500,000 square miles to American territory. The conflict began with Texas, which had won independence from Mexico in 1836. When the United States annexed Texas in 1845, Mexico refused to accept it. For Mexico, this was an invasion. Thanks to advanced AI software, we can now restore these historical scenes with unprecedented clarity. By analysing contemporary lithographs and paintings created by eyewitness artists, we're able to show how this conflict unfolded, bringing to life the battles that transformed the map of North America. This is the prairie near Palo Alto, just north of the Rio Grande on May 8, 1846. General Zachary Taylor's 2,200 American troops are facing 3,700 Mexican soldiers under General Mariano Arista. You're seeing the view from behind American lines as mobile field guns fire south toward Mexican positions. Smoke billows across the prairie as cannonballs tear through Mexican formations. A grass fire sparked by cannon blasts adds to the chaos. By nightfall, the Mexicans retreat. American artillery has proven devastatingly effective. Taylor's victory, followed the next day by another at Resaca de la Palma, clears the border region and opens the way for invasion of northern Mexico. What began as a border skirmish is now a full-scale war. This is Monterrey in northern Mexico, September 1846. General Taylor has pushed deep into Mexican territory. From September 21st to 24th, you're witnessing brutal urban combat as American soldiers fight through the city's streets against Mexican troops under General Pedro de Ampudia. You're seeing American infantry storming fortified plazas. Soldiers advance through narrow streets under fire from rooftops and barricades. The fighting is house to house, room to room. After 3 days, Ampudia surrenders the city on honourable terms. His troops march out with their weapons. But Taylor grants an 8-week armistice, giving Mexican General Antonio López de Santa Anna, a charismatic former president returned from exile, crucial time to regroup. The temporary peace will not last. This is a narrow mountain pass near Buena Vista, February 23, 1847. Santa Anna has led 15,000 Mexican troops north to confront Taylor's 5,000. This is Mexico's best chance to defeat the invasion. You're seeing General Taylor on horseback rallying his troops as Mexican lancers charge. Infantry fire in ranks while artillery blasts into dense Mexican formations. Santa Anna launches fierce assaults, nearly overwhelming the outnumbered Americans. But American artillery fires repeatedly into Mexican attacks with devastating effect. Despite numerical advantage, Santa Anna withdraws by evening. His army is low on supplies and has suffered heavy casualties. The dramatic American victory makes Taylor a national hero. Santa Anna's defeat forces him south. He must now defend Mexico's heartland because the Americans have opened a more dangerous front. This is Veracruz, Mexico's major Gulf Coast port in March 1847. General Winfield Scott has landed 12,000 troops and now surrounds the city while American warships blockade it from the sea. You're seeing the bombardment. American mortars and naval guns shelling the city's defenses. Explosions erupt along the walls. The San Juan de Ulua fortress is being pounded by artillery fire. After bombardment from March 9th to 29th, the defenders surrender. The fall of Veracruz cuts off Mexico's ability to resupply and opens an invasion route to the interior. Scott now marches inland toward Mexico City along the same path Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés took 3 centuries earlier. Santa Anna tries to block him, but is outflanked and defeated at Cerro Gordo in April. By summer 1847, American forces are approaching the capital itself.
This is Chapultepec Castle,
a fortress atop a steep hill guarding Mexico City, September 1847. After victories in August brought American forces to the capital's gates, and after a costly battle at Molino del Rey on September 8th, Chapultepec remains the last major obstacle. On September 13th, you're seeing American soldiers scaling the rocky slopes under heavy fire. General Gideon Pillo's troops clamber up the steep approach as Mexican defenders fire down from the castle walls. Among the defenders are young cadets from Mexico's military academy. According to Mexican legend, one cadet named Juan Escutia wrapped himself in the Mexican flag and leapt to his death rather than surrender it. These niños héroes, boy heroes, became symbols of Mexican courage. By late morning, American troops overwhelm the defenders. The American flag is raised over Chapultepec. The last line of defense for Mexico City has fallen. This is Mexico City on September 14th, 1847. You're seeing General Scott's army marching into the capital's central plaza. American units advance past watching civilians as the Stars and Stripes is raised over the National Palace. Santa Anna has fled, and Mexico's government is in disarray. The occupation effectively ends the war. On February 2nd, 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo is signed. Mexico cedes 55% of its territory. Present-day California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, most of Arizona and Colorado, and parts of several other states. The Rio Grande becomes the Texas border. The United States pays Mexico $15 million. The consequences are profound. The United States now stretches from Atlantic to Pacific, achieving continental expansion. But the new territories immediately reignite fierce debate over slavery. Within 13 years, these tensions will explode into the Civil War. The war also trains many officers who will fight that later conflict. Ulysses S. Grant, Robert E. Lee, and Stonewall Jackson all gained experience in Mexico. For Mexico, the war is a national tragedy. Half the country's territory lost and deep humiliation. In Mexican history, it is remembered as La Invasión Norteamericana. The loss fuels political turmoil for years. The Mexican-American War reshaped North America, set the stage for America's continental power, and planted seeds of future conflicts. Its legacy lives on in the territories gained and lost, in heroes and legends, and in the lesson that expansion came at profound human cost. History has left us countless paintings and lithographs from pivotal moments throughout time. Tell us in the comments, which historical event would you like to see revived next? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. The American Civil War was the bloodiest conflict in American history. From 1861 to 1865, a nation divided over slavery and states' rights tore itself apart in 4 years of devastating warfare. Over 620,000 Americans died, roughly 2% of the entire population at the time. Thanks to advanced AI software, we can now restore these historical scenes with unprecedented clarity. By analysing actual Civil War photographs and contemporary engravings, many created by eyewitnesses on the battlefield, we're able to show how these pivotal moments unfolded, bringing to life the battles and people who fought to preserve or divide the Union. It all started in 1860. Abraham Lincoln was elected president on a platform opposing the expansion of slavery. Southern states, fearing he would eventually abolish slavery entirely, began seceding from the Union to form their own nation, the Confederate States of America. Lincoln refused to accept this division, insisting the Union was permanent and indivisible. When Confederate forces fired on a federal fort in April 1861, 4 years of devastating warfare began. This is Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor, South Carolina, on April 12, 1861. You're witnessing the opening bombardment of the Civil War. South Carolina demands that federal troops abandon this fort on their soil. When Major Robert Anderson refuses, Confederate General P.G.T. Beauregard orders his batteries to open fire. You're seeing exploding shells and smoke engulf the brick fortress as Confederate gunners pound the walls with cannon fire. The pre-dawn sky lights up with artillery flashes and the arc of mortar shells raining down. Inside, Anderson's garrison of fewer than 90 men returns fire, but they're hopelessly outnumbered. After 36 hours of bombardment, Anderson surrenders. You're seeing the interior of Fort Sumter just after. Confederate soldiers raising their battle flag above the shattered walls. Remarkably, no soldiers died in combat. The only casualties occurred when a gun exploded during the surrender salute. Fort Sumter's fall rallied both sides to arms. Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteers to suppress the rebellion. 4 more southern states seceded in response, bringing the Confederacy to 11 states. The war both sides expected to end in months was about to begin. This is Henry House Hill near Manassas, Virginia, on July 21, 1861. Both North and South rushed to prepare armies after Fort Sumter. Now, just 3 months later, Union General Irvin McDowell has marched 18,000 troops south to crush the rebellion with one decisive battle. Many Northern civilians followed the army, expecting to watch a quick victory before returning to Washington for dinner. You're witnessing the battle's climax. Lines of Union and Confederate troops clash in fierce combat amid dense smoke. In the center, you're seeing the 69th New York Irish Brigade charging with bayonets fixed toward a Confederate battery on the hill. But the Confederate line is holding. General Thomas Jackson stands firm, earning his nickname Stonewall. While Confederate reinforcements pour in from the Shenandoah Valley, the Union attack falters. You're seeing the chaotic retreat. Panicked Union soldiers, supply wagons, and those civilian spectators clogging the road back to Washington in complete disorder. Confederate cavalry harass the fleeing army as wagons overturn and men throw away their weapons to run faster. By day's end, nearly 5,000 men are casualties. Union 2,700, Confederate 2,000. The shocking defeat shattered Northern expectations of a short war. Both sides now realized this conflict would be long and bloody. The Confederacy, defending its home territory with skilled generals like Lee and Jackson, had won the first major battle. But the North, with vastly superior population and industrial resources, was only beginning to mobilize. This is Antietam Creek near Sharpsburg, Maryland, on September 17, 1862. By the fall of 1862, Confederate General Robert E. Lee has decided on a bold strategy: invade the North. If he can win a major battle on Union soil, European nations might recognize the Confederacy and broker peace. Lee's army crossed into Maryland in early September with 40,000 men. Union General George McClellan intercepted him here with 75,000 troops. You're witnessing the single bloodiest day in American history. At dawn, Union forces attacked. You're seeing troops of the Iron Brigade in their black hats charging through Miller's cornfield toward the White Dunker Church, bayonets fixed as smoke rolls across the field. Men fall in rows as musket fire cuts them down. By midday, the fighting shifted to a sunken farm road that became known as Bloody Lane. You're seeing the aftermath, Confederate soldiers lying piled where they fell during hours of brutal fighting. Their bodies are strewn along the trench, swollen and still. This photograph by Alexander Gardner, taken days after the battle, was among the first to show Americans the true horror of war. By nightfall, over 22,000 men are casualties, roughly 12,000 Union, 10,000 Confederate. Though tactically inconclusive, Lee's battered army retreated back to Virginia. His invasion had failed. More importantly, the Union's strategic victory gave President Lincoln what he'd been waiting for: a battlefield success that would allow him to issue the Emancipation Proclamation without appearing desperate. 5 days later, Lincoln announced that on January 1st, 1863, all enslaved people in Confederate states would be declared free. This is the White House on January 1st, 1863. President Lincoln is signing the Emancipation Proclamation, surrounded by his cabinet. You're seeing the moment that transformed the war's purpose. Initially, Lincoln had fought to preserve the Union, not to end slavery. He feared that making abolition a war goal would drive border states like Kentucky and Maryland into the Confederacy. But after Antietam gave him political capital, Lincoln changed the war's character. The proclamation declared free all enslaved people in Confederate states still in rebellion. Though it freed few slaves immediately, it only applied to territory the Union didn't yet control. It fundamentally altered the conflict. This was no longer just a fight to preserve the Union. It was now a war against slavery itself. The proclamation discouraged Britain and France from recognizing the Confederacy, as European public opinion strongly opposed slavery. It also invited black men to join the Union Army. By war's end, nearly 200,000 black soldiers and sailors would serve the Union cause, providing crucial manpower. The Confederacy now faced an existential threat. Union victory would mean the end of slavery and the social order the South had seceded to protect. This is Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, in early July 1863. Despite Antietam's setback, Lee has launched a second invasion of the North in the summer of 1863. If he can win a major victory on Union soil, he might still force Lincoln to negotiate peace. Lee's 75,000 men march into Pennsylvania, while Union General George Meade moves 90,000 troops to intercept him. The armies collide at the small town of Gettysburg on July 1st. For 3 days they battle across fields and hills surrounding the town. You're seeing the aftermath at Trosel Farm. Dozens of dead artillery horses from the 9th Massachusetts Battery lying where they fell on July 2nd. The shell-pierced barn stands in the background. Union batteries fought desperately here to hold the line. On July 3rd, Lee makes a fateful decision. You're seeing pickets charge. Nearly 15,000 Confederate troops advancing across 3/4 of a mile of open ground toward the Union center on Cemetery Ridge. General Winfield Hancock's Union forces are firing point blank. Artillery erupts with canister shot. The foreground is littered with fallen soldiers. Confederate battle flags wave through the smoke, but the assault is doomed. Union fire tears massive gaps in their lines. The charge fails catastrophically. Fewer than half the Confederates return. Total casualties for 3 days reach 51,000, 23,000 Union, 28,000 Confederate. Lee's army retreats back to Virginia, never to invade the North again. The same week, far to the west, Union General Ulysses S. Grant captures Vicksburg on the Mississippi River, splitting the Confederacy in two. From this point forward, the South is losing. The question is no longer if the Union will win, but when and at what cost. This is Atlanta, Georgia, in November 1864. By 1864, Union strategy has evolved. General Ulysses S. Grant, now commanding all Union armies, has adopted a strategy of total war, not just defeating Confederate armies, but destroying the South's ability to wage war at all. In the West, General William Sherman has captured Atlanta after a brutal summer campaign. You're seeing the city in ruins. The wrecked railroad depot and roundhouse lie in charred rubble, where vital Confederate rail facilities once stood. Twisted iron and burned timber are all that remain. Black smoke hangs over the devastated skyline. Before marching to the sea, Sherman's forces systematically destroyed Atlanta's military and industrial infrastructure. From November 15th to December 21st, his 62,000 troops marched 285 miles to Savannah, cutting a 60-mile wide path of destruction through Georgia's heartland. They destroyed railroads, burned plantations and military supplies, and liberated an estimated 20,000 enslaved people. Savannah surrendered without a fight. Sherman's march demonstrated that the Confederacy could no longer protect its own territory. The psychological impact was devastating. Southern civilians realized their cause was lost. The campaign helped ensure Lincoln's re-election in November 1864, ending any hope the South had of a negotiated peace. By early 1865, the Confederacy was collapsing. Grant's armies had Lee trapped in Virginia, supplies were running out, and Confederate soldiers were deserting by the thousands. This is Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia, on April 9, 1865. After nearly 4 years of war, it's finally ending. General Lee's Army of Northern Virginia, once the Confederacy's most formidable force, is surrounded, starving, and outnumbered 3-1. With no possibility of escape, Lee has requested a meeting with Union General Ulysses S. Grant to discuss surrender terms. You're seeing the parlor of Wilmer McLean's house where the two generals meet. Lee, dressed in his finest grey uniform with ceremonial sword, stands with dignified resignation. Grant, mud-splattered in a simple field uniform, gestures courteously that Lee may keep his sidearm and horse. Around them stand officers from both sides, observing in respectful silence. You're seeing Grant writing out the surrender terms by hand at a small table. The terms are generous. Lee's 28,000 soldiers will be paroled and allowed to return home. They can keep their horses for spring planting. No trials for treason, no imprisonment. Grant wants reconciliation, not revenge. Within weeks, other Confederate armies surrender across the South. By May, the war is effectively over. The Union is preserved as one indivisible nation. The 13th Amendment, ratified in December 1865, abolishes slavery throughout the United States. 4 million formerly enslaved people gain their freedom. The cost has been staggering. Over 620,000 Americans dead, the South's economy in ruins, and scars that will take generations to heal. But the fundamental questions have been answered. The United States is one nation, indivisible, and slavery has no place in it. History has left us countless photographs and paintings from pivotal moments throughout time. Tell us in the comments, which historical event would you like to see revived next? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.